was a cold, quiet night on my dad's hunting farm when everything changed. After decades of riding the same familiar roads, my dad and a friend decided to take their four wheelers out for a spin. The night was clear and the woods were silent, but that peace would not last for long. In an instant, my dad lost control of his bike on a bend that he had ridden 100 times before. He crashed violently into a tree, and the impact threw him from the bike. What should have been a simple ride turned into a nightmare. Even worse, his friend, unaware of the accident, continued down the road, leaving my dad. Tonight, I'm here to honor my dad's strength, perseverance, and resilience. I want to share how he survived those agonizing hours, fought through unimaginable obstacles during his recovery, and how his courage became a powerful lesson for all of us. His story is one of grit, an incredible reminder that no matter how bleak the situation, the human spirit can endure. On that night, my dad was speeding down a familiar dirt road when, just as he came around a bend, he lost control of his bike. The crash was pretty violent. The impact sent him tumbling into a cold swamp where the freezing water only compounded his suffering. His hip was shattered and the pain was intense. So intense that at times he said that it must have felt like he would never get up again. But somehow, in the midst of the chaos, he managed to drag himself through the swamp, determined to find a way out. His phone had been thrown somewhere during the crash, lost somewhere in the dark, muddy water. He searched hours to find it. After he finally found it and he checked it, it was dead, completely unresponsive. After everything he had been through, he was close to losing hope. But incredibly, after a few desperate attempts, the phone flickered on, and he quickly dialed 911. Unfortunately, the first responders could not find him. Alone in the swamp, injured, and with no one around, he had to think fast. He managed to crawl back to his four-wheeler, turned on his lights, illuminating exactly where he was, and finally, they found him, which I'm sure felt like an eternity. He was airlifted to the hospital, but that journey was far from over. My dad has always been an avid, experienced hunter. He knows those woods like the back of his hand. He's hiked these dense forests for years. He's tracked lots of game in them. But that night, his deep connection to the land couldn't even save him. The reality of what had happened set in. Alone in the swamp with a broken hip, even his physical strength wasn't enough to get him up out of this one. What kept him going, though, wasn't just his physical stamina, it was his mental toughness. Over the years of hunting and exploring, he'd learned how to push through the pain, exhaustion, and fear. But what he had to rely on now was something even deeper. Despite the unbearable pain, he never gave up. Every movement, every inch forward was a battle. His body was broken, but his will to survive was unshakable. He focused on one small step at a time. It's hard to imagine how he kept going. But his resilience in that moment, in those hours of isolation, was nothing short of extraordinary. His strength didn't come from his muscles. It came from his mind, from his refusal to quit. The recovery process was long and incredibly difficult. The doctors performed a successful hip replacement, but at first he couldn't even do simple things like put on his own socks or shoes. My mom had to take FMLA leave from work to care for him, and the emotional and mental toll that took on them was exhausting. But my dad refused to be defeated. He wasn't going to let his injury define him. Within weeks, he was back in the woods, crutches in hand, making his way to a hunting blind. At first, it was just small steps, just a few hours in the woods, but that was enough. It didn't matter that he had to start slow. What mattered was that he started. His spirit and determination pushed him forward, step by painful step. His recovery was slow, but he never stopped moving forward. Today, he's thriving. He may limp a little when he walks, but it's a small price to pay for the strength and resilience he's shown through it all. As I've shared tonight, my dad's journey speaks volumes about inner strength and perseverance. There is so much more to this story, so many more struggles, more victories, and more lessons, but time doesn't allow us to capture them all. Still, what I hope you take away from this is the unwavering power of the human spirit. My dad's journey has inspired all of us. It serves as a reminder that no matter what life throws our way, no matter how dark the night, no matter how impossible the challenge, we can overcome it. With perseverance, mental toughness, and hope, we can make it through. And if my dad can survive those agonizing hours, those endless days of recovery, then I believe there is nothing that any of us can't endure.